Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to avoid toxic people, the more they seem drawn toward you? As if you carry an invisible magnet, attracting precisely the individuals you wish desperately to escape. It's easy to believe you're simply unlucky, or perhaps destined to attract chaos. But what if the truth runs deeper? What if these toxic relationships are not random at all, but rather reflections of the unseen wounds you quietly carry within yourself? Have you ever paused and asked yourself, why am I always the target? Why does peace feel so unattainable? The uncomfortable reality might be that it's not about them, but about you. Toxic individuals have an uncanny ability. They sense unresolved emotional wounds the way sharks smell blood. They gravitate toward the hidden insecurities and fears you're working so hard to suppress. Perhaps the people causing you the greatest pain are unknowingly highlighting the darkest, most neglected corners of your inner self. As psychologist Carl Jung discovered, those who trigger our strongest reactions often serve as mirrors, reflecting back to us the shadows we refuse to acknowledge. This might seem counterintuitive, but could it be that facing these painful reflections head-on is precisely what you've been avoiding? Maybe the real question isn't how to escape toxic people, but why you remain vulnerable to their influence in the first place. Are you ready to confront the unseen parts of yourself that you've buried deep, the parts that inadvertently attract the very people you wish to avoid? Because here lies the secret. Peace does not come from hiding or running, but from finally understanding and healing those invisible wounds you've been silently carrying for far too long. You might wonder why certain people constantly find their way into your life. People who drain you emotionally, manipulate your feelings, and leave you exhausted. It's not random. These individuals are drawn to the hidden wounds you carry deep within yourself. Toxic people possess an uncanny ability to sense your unresolved fears, your quiet insecurities, the vulnerabilities you've never truly faced. Think of yourself as a room filled with delicate, fragile items, each representing an old emotional wound. These wounds remain quietly hidden, untouched for years, until one day someone casually walks in, unaware of your hidden pains, and knocks everything over. A single careless comment about your competence at work, or even an innocent question about your choices, can send you spiraling into sleepless nights of self-doubt. But why do their words hold so much power over you? Could it be that deep within your personal unconscious, you secretly agree with them? Perhaps the painful truth is that the only reason their remarks hurt so deeply is that they echo something you've always feared was true about yourself. Yet, there's an even deeper reason you find yourself entangled in anger and resentment. Without realizing it, you've handed over the keys to your inner world. You've placed your sense of self-worth in the hands of others, and now you're angry because they're not handling it with care. Imagine willingly giving someone access to your home and then becoming furious when they walk in uninvited. Who truly caused that invasion? Was it them, or was it your willingness to surrender your boundaries? Consider every time someone criticizes you and your immediate reaction is feeling worthless or inadequate. Why do you allow someone else's judgment to define who you are? If you genuinely believed in your own value, would criticism have the power to shake you so profoundly? When you hand over control of your emotional state to another person, you unknowingly turn yourself into a puppet, dancing helplessly to their emotional whims. Ask yourself this: if you truly owned your worth, would you still give others the power to define your peace? But perhaps your anger runs even deeper. Maybe you're not truly angry at others, but rather at yourself for failing to fully accept and love who you are. When you haven't genuinely embraced your own worth, every negative remark becomes a painful confirmation of your inner doubts. Picture Hannah sitting silently in her car after a meeting where her supervisor criticized her work. She wasn't crying because of her supervisor's harsh words. She cried because, deep down, she had always questioned her own capabilities. And now, someone else had exposed that insecurity. You're like a delicate glass, fragile and vulnerable to even the slightest touch. only because you're not yet solid within yourself. The painful truth you must ask yourself is, are you genuinely upset at them? Or are you angry at your own inability to love and accept yourself completely? This realization comes from embracing Carl Jung's concept of shadow work, the process of facing and integrating the darker, unaccepted aspects of yourself. The path of individuation involves recognizing these shadows and transforming them into sources of strength. Ultimately, the most powerful insight comes when you realize that genuine freedom is only possible once you stop borrowing your identity from external validation. Your peace, your worth, your very sense of self. These things cannot truly come from someone else's approval. Think carefully about this. Nobody can truly hurt you without your permission. If you cease giving others the power to define your worth, their criticism loses its sting. Consider those who remain calm and secure even when under constant scrutiny or criticism. They stay peaceful because their self-worth isn't rooted in external feedback. It's grounded deeply in their internal truth. Imagine who you would become if the opinions and judgments of others no longer influenced your self-image. How would your life look if your inner peace and self-worth were unwavering, no longer subject to external validation? This profound liberation resonates deeply with the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, where inner peace and identity come from understanding that your true self is not dependent on external factors. Carl Jung's process of individuation also points to this freedom, emphasizing the journey toward becoming your authentic self, independent of external judgments. Reflect honestly now. Who would you be if you stopped allowing words and actions of others to define you? What kind of person would emerge if you no longer felt threatened by criticism or uplifted by praise? This isn't merely theoretical, it is an invitation to genuine inner transformation. Realize that true liberation isn't about building emotional walls or learning clever ways to dodge criticism. It's about removing the very hooks upon which toxic people can latch onto your emotions. When you no longer depend on external validation for your self-worth, toxic individuals naturally lose their power over you. They find no vulnerabilities to exploit, no insecurities to manipulate. This is the moment you become truly free. Not because the world suddenly becomes kinder or people cease to hurt you, but because you've reclaimed authority over your own emotional well-being. So ask yourself this final, powerful question: who could you become if you no longer allowed external voices to control your inner peace? The powerful truth that you're about to face may feel uncomfortable, but it's precisely this discomfort that can finally set you free. You will only stop attracting toxic people when you stop borrowing your identity and self-worth from their words and actions. Think about this carefully. Every time someone criticizes you, rejects you, or questions your choices, a piece of your inner stability is disrupted. It's as if your self-worth is a fragile object you've placed carefully into their hands, hoping they'll treat it with care. And when they don't, when their words become harsh or indifferent, you're shattered. But why do their judgments hold such immense power over you? Could it be because you've unknowingly allowed them to define who you are? Picture yourself as a strong, immovable mountain. Storms will come and go, winds will howl fiercely, lightning might flash across your surface, but you remain unmoved. It's not because the mountain is indifferent or insensitive. Rather, the mountain remains steady because it knows exactly what it is, and no external force can alter its essential nature. What if you possess this kind of unwavering clarity about yourself? What if the opinions, judgments, or criticisms of others became like passing storms? Intense, perhaps uncomfortable, but ultimately incapable of altering your fundamental worth? Imagine the freedom you'd feel, knowing that your identity is no longer dictated by someone else's fleeting perceptions. Yet, to achieve this level of inner stability, you must first confront the uncomfortable realization that you've been outsourcing your self-worth to external sources. Perhaps you've spent your entire life seeking approval, hoping for validation from friends, family, co-workers, or even strangers. You might have been convinced that their acceptance is the key to your happiness and peace. But here's the brutal yet liberating truth. When you place your worth in the hands of others, you also hand over the power to destroy you. Every rejection becomes catastrophic, every criticism devastating, every harsh word capable of undermining your sense of self. This dependency is precisely what draws toxic people toward you. They sense the vulnerability in your need for external approval, and they exploit it effortlessly. Consider for a moment, who would you be if you genuinely stopped caring about external judgment and validation? How would your life transform if the voice you trusted most deeply was your own? This isn't about becoming cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's about cultivating an inner strength that isn't shaken by external storms. Toxic people feed on your need to be accepted, to be seen, to be validated. But once that need disappears, their power evaporates. Their manipulations fall flat. Their criticisms lose their sting, and their attempts to control your emotional state simply no longer matter. Think deeply about this question. Are you truly living your life, or are you merely reacting to the emotional provocations of others? Are you making decisions based on your own values and inner convictions? Or are you continually adjusting your behavior to meet the shifting standards of those around you? The moment you stop defining yourself by external opinions, you step into genuine empowerment. You become unbreakable, not because you've hardened yourself, but because you finally learned to source your identity from within. What would happen if someone criticized your choices, questioned your worth, or tried to belittle you, and it genuinely no longer affected you? What if you could genuinely listen to criticism without internalizing it, hear harsh words without feeling diminished, and observe manipulative attempts without falling into the emotional traps laid before you? You'd find that these toxic individuals quickly lose interest in you because you no longer provide the emotional reaction they crave. But this transformation doesn't come easily. It requires deep, honest self-reflection. It demands that you confront your insecurities, your fears, your vulnerabilities, and your shadows. It means accepting responsibility for your emotional reactions rather than blaming others for them. It means understanding that while you cannot control how others behave, you can always control your response. The mountain is not strong because it fights storms or resists wind. The mountain is strong precisely because it doesn't need to fight at all. It remains firm in knowing exactly what it is. Likewise, your strength isn't found in arguing, fighting, or proving others wrong. Your strength lies in understanding your true nature, your authentic self, beyond external approval or disapproval. Pause for a moment now and genuinely ask yourself, who could you become if you stopped letting others define you? What would your life look like if you could let go of needing others' approval, validation, or even understanding? How much energy would you reclaim if you stopped reacting emotionally to every passing judgment or careless comment? This internal shift is profoundly liberating, transformative, and essential if you wish to stop attracting toxicity into your life. So, here's the truth you must face. The solution isn't about changing others, it's about changing your relationship with yourself. The real power isn't in becoming immune to criticism, it's in realizing criticism has no power over you unless you give it power. When you stop seeking external validation, when you no longer rely on others' words or actions to define your self-worth, you unlock an inner peace and resilience you've never experienced before. Ask yourself again, what would your relationships, your career, your emotional health look like if your self-worth no longer depended on the fluctuating opinions of those around you? Toxic people gravitate toward insecurity, self-doubt, and emotional dependence. But when these vulnerabilities disappear, so do they. Without the reaction they seek, toxic individuals lose interest quickly. You become psychologically invisible, inaccessible, because there's no longer emotional nourishment for them. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning knowing that your value isn't dependent on anyone else's approval. Imagine the freedom, the clarity, the sense of authentic power you would embody. Imagine interacting with people confidently, clearly, and compassionately. Not because you're trying to earn their approval, but because you're finally free from needing it. This is the profound insight Carl Jung pointed toward: the journey of individuation, becoming fully and unapologetically yourself. Ultimately, the question isn't about how to avoid toxic people, but about how to become someone they instinctively avoid. It's about becoming a mountain, firm and clear in your own truth, unaffected by external storms, not through indifference, but through deep, unwavering self-awareness. So ask yourself deeply one final time: who will you become when you no longer allow others to define who you are? True peace isn't waiting on other people to change. It's something you claim right now, something you decide to own. You've spent too long letting every careless word, every harsh judgment, every indifferent glance from someone else dictate how you feel inside. How much longer are you willing to let others hold the power over your peace? Maybe you've wondered why, despite your best efforts, certain people still trigger you so deeply. The truth is simple yet powerful. You've been giving them permission. You've allowed their words to define your worth, their opinions to shape your identity. But what if their judgment no longer mattered? What if your sense of self didn't rely on anyone else's approval or validation? Real strength comes the moment you stop allowing your inner world to be controlled by external circumstances. Peace isn't something you wait for. It's a conscious choice. A choice to no longer be moved by the small, insignificant storms around you. Your anger, your frustration, your exhaustion, these are signals that you've been outsourcing your emotional stability. Right now, you have the opportunity to take your power back. Decide clearly and deliberately. No one's opinion will shape who you are anymore. Your worth, your identity, your peace, they belong to you alone. If you're truly ready to let go of the anger you've been carrying, if you're ready to reclaim your inner peace, then acknowledge it openly. Write down clearly in the comments below: I choose peace from within. Writing these words is more than symbolic. It's your personal commitment to finally live on your own terms. Because the moment you decide that no external voice can define your value, that is the moment your real freedom begins.